The Athletic.
Hello and welcome along to the Race F1 briefing for Sunday the 21st of July 2024. I'm Jonny Reynolds, and on this episode we'll be looking back on the Hungarian Grand Prix, a race full of excitement and intrigue, controversial collisions, spicy team radio messages and even a first-time winner. So now I've given it the big build-up, let's get cracking with our quickfire recap. So just what is it about the Hungaroring and maiden Grand Prix victories? Over the years, the likes of Damon Hill, Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso, Heikki Kovalainen and Esteban Ocon have all claimed their first F1 wins there, and now we can add Australian Oscar Piastri to that list. Yes, the 23-year-old swept from P2 on the grid to P1 at the flag, though it was a win complicated by team orders angst, with McLaren teammate Lando Norris reluctantly handing the lead back to Piastri late on, having been given an advantage in the pit sequence that his team always said they would reverse. Behind the formation flying papaya cars, Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton secured his 200th career podium, but only after a collision with a raging Max Verstappen, who spent much of the race arguing with his engineer about strategy, car performance and other drivers' behaviour. Piastri had taken the lead at the start, claiming the inside line at turn 1 as he, teammate Norris, who reported throttle problems on the way to the grid, and Verstappen went 3 abreast around the right-hander. Verstappen ran off track but kept his foot to the floor and returned to the track in second place ahead of Norris, and was eventually convinced by his engineer to hand the place back to Norris at the start of lap 4, avoiding the need for the stewards to make a judgment call on what had happened. Hamilton was the driver who pried open the pit window for the top 6 drivers, having switched from mediums to hards on lap 17. Norris responded 1 lap later, and Piastri then followed suit with a switch to hards on lap 19. He cycled back into the lead once the top 6 had all pitted and led Norris by more than 3 seconds, but lost time towards the end of his stint on hard tyres. Then came the moment that caused so much complication for McLaren. With Hamilton again pitting ahead of the papaya cars, McLaren took the unusual step of pitting Norris first to cover off the Mercedes driver, at the same time reassuring Piastri that if he was undercut by his teammates, which is what happened, they'd return him to the lead. The only problem was, Norris really didn't seem that keen on letting Piastri back in front. With the lead going out to 4 seconds or so, Norris was told repeatedly by his engineer Will Joseph to, quote, do the right thing and let Piastri past, and after many laps of consternation and increasingly stern messages, he eventually did so with 3 laps to go. So, just as in qualifying, the race ended in a McLaren 1-2, their first since Italy 2021. Though, just as on that occasion, it was Lando Norris who had to play second fiddle. Ordinarily, a clash between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen would probably be any race's big talking point, but today McLaren's team orders and the way Lando Norris reacted to them was the topic that dominated post-race chat. As the race's Ed Straw reports from the Hungaroring, Lando Norris turned up for the Hungarian Grand Prix press conference earlier than fellow podium finishers Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri, having completed his television interviews much more briskly. Piastri was nominally the story, but Norris stole his thunder, and it genuinely seemed he did so inadvertently. It's impossible to know exactly what went through Norris's mind, but there were signs as he answered the journalist's questions that perhaps he was going through a process of realising how his conduct in the race and the radio traffic had looked to the outside world. Norris repeatedly said he always intended to give the place back to the teammate he had jumped for the lead with an undercut, and there's no reason to doubt that. He magnanimously stressed early on that, quote, I didn't give up the race win, I lost the race win off the line, and that Piastri, quote, deserved to win today. But inevitably, that wasn't quite enough. Asked how seriously he considered not giving the place back, he admitted, quote, things are always going to go through your mind because you've got to be selfish, before stressing that, quote, I'm also a team player. But tellingly, he also admitted that, quote, my mind was going pretty crazy at the time. What made this into such a significant story was the fact that McLaren made its position clear early on in the final stint, telling Norris after the final round of pit stops to, quote, re-establish the order at your convenience, and Norris pointedly took issue with the instruction, time after time. Our man Ed put the question to Norris in the press conference that given these multiple reminders about changing positions, why not give the pit wall a confirmation to put their minds at rest, if you were going to do it? Norris responded, "I don't need to. I know what I want to do and what I'm not going to do. And of course I'm going to just question it and challenge it, and that's what I did." He continued, "I was going to wait until the last lap, the last corner, but then they said if there was a safety car all of a sudden, I couldn't let Oscar go through. Then it would have made me look a bit of an idiot. So then I was like, yeah, fair point, and I let him go through with 2 to go or something." For his part, Piastri admitted that the team order scenario had made him nervous, but it certainly didn't detract from him achieving a lifelong ambition. He said, "It's very, very special. This is really the day I dreamed of as a kid, standing on the top step of an F1 podium. Obviously it's a bit complicated at the end, but I put myself in the right position at the start, and thank you to the team for the amazing effort and amazing car. It's a hell of a lot of fun racing for McLaren, so I can't thank them enough for giving me the opportunity to be in F1, and to be able to win together 18 months in is an incredible feeling."
The Race F1 Briefing.
To that clash between Hamilton and Verstappen now, which effectively decided third place in Hamilton's favour. It came 8 laps from the end of a race in which Verstappen was unusually and audibly agitated, not least with being undercut by Hamilton not once, but twice. Stopping for a second time 9 laps after the Briton and switching to mediums rather than the Mercedes man's hards, Verstappen made his frustration clear after his race engineer Gianpiero Lambiase sarcastically scolded him for overly aggressive pace on his new tyres. Verstappen responded with an expletive-filled reply, not his first of the day, in which he said he was trying to rescue the race from a bad strategy. Having passed Ferrari's Charles Leclerc for 4th into turn 1 on lap 57, Verstappen had just 2 seconds between himself and Hamilton. The inevitable battle for third place came on lap 62 when Verstappen attempted to pass Hamilton around the outside of turn 3. He ran out of racing room at that corner and complained that there wasn't a car's width left by the Mercedes, so Verstappen came back again on the following lap. This time he had the inside line at turn 1, but he locked up. As Hamilton turned in, the Mercedes hit the Red Bull's left rear tyre and briefly pitched Verstappen airborne. Verstappen complained that Hamilton had moved under braking, but engineer Lambiase issued a stern response, saying, quote, "I'm not even going to get into a radio fight with the other teams, Max. We'll let the stewards do their thing. It's childish on the radio. Childish. Spicy indeed." So, Leclerc finished 4th and Verstappen took 5th on the road ahead of Carlos Sainz. For the record, while Verstappen pinned the blame on his clash with Hamilton on the Briton, the stewards took the same view as Hamilton, declaring it a racing incident and choosing to take no further action. You know it's an incident-filled race when we're this far through the podcast and we haven't yet mentioned a driver outside the top 5 finishers, so let's put that right now. Yesterday we brought you news of 2 high-profile fallers in the Q1 segment of qualifying, Red Bull's under-fire Sergio Perez, who crashed out, and Mercedes' George Russell. Both were left needing big recovery drives on race day, and to their credit, both delivered them, with Perez winning the mini-battle by taking P7 and Russell coming home in P8. Perez pulled off a long opening stint on hard tyres to work his way into the top 10 and then completed 2 rapid stints on medium tyres to secure points on what was a difficult day for Red Bull. Russell, who started 17th, went longer than Perez in the first stint and toyed with the idea of a one-stop strategy, but ultimately settled for a 2-stop strategy that left him comfortably ahead of Yuki Tsunoda's one-stopping RB and Lance Stroll's 10th placed Aston Martin. Despite the frantic nature of the race, there was only one retiree on the day, Alpine's Pierre Gasly, who started last from the pit lane and returned to the garage after 33 laps with hydraulic issues. A weekend to forget there for Pierre. And having just mentioned Sergio Perez, let's end this episode with the latest update in the saga that has become the Mexican's future at Red Bull Racing. As reported by The Race early in the Hungarian GP event, and indeed on this very podcast, reserve driver Liam Lawson, who recently completed a reasonable test in Red Bull's 2024 car, was thought to be the frontrunner if Red Bull did indeed decide to replace Perez before the end of the year. But now sources have indicated to The Race that Red Bull believes Ricciardo would be a more pragmatic choice, at least for the rest of 2024. As the race's Scott Mitchell-Malm reports, this reflects how fluid the situation is and why Red Bull wants to get to the summer break with data from Sunday's Hungarian GP and next week's Belgian GP to make a decision free from the rapidly changing variables of a race weekend. Stay tuned for the next instalment of this ongoing drama in Belgium in a few days' time. Phew, I think we'll leave it there for today's episode. The briefing will return in a few days' time when the teams and drivers rock up in Spa for the Belgian Grand Prix. Until then, you can add meat to the bones of all the stories we've discussed today by heading to therace.com, not forgetting that hyphen. And there will be plenty of discussion on Norris, Verstappen, team orders, team radio, and more on the Race F1 podcast, which I'm just off to edit now. Thanks for your company this weekend. I've been Jonny Reynolds, and this has been the Race F1 Briefing. Goodbye.
The Athletic.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10, place your first bet on any game, and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.